continuing with the second part of our series with Felix Müller. He served in the South African Police Force between 1968 and 72. Probably one of a few Irishmen in the South African Police Force. And he also then joined the Royal Hong Kong Police Force afterwards. We had many adventures. Felix, can you summarize for us, and then we'll just take it from there?
Hello, what the hell's happened now? Okay, recording. Okay, good. Okay, so we were talking about the Caprivi Strip and all the goings on there, and talking about Rhodesia. Now, one of the interesting things I heard was online, so I don't know how true it is. It was ex-South African who'd been up in Angola 1975 fighting the MPLA. You know, there were one day out of Luanda when the Yanks pulled the plug. But he said,
Operation Savannah, we were invaded in Angola by army.
Yeah.
It's the fastest armor thing in the world ever built today.
Yeah. Well, one of the things he mentioned was that the Yanks had supplied the South Africans with mortar tubes. And the mortar tubes had the firing pins removed so they couldn't use them. Now, have you ever heard anything like that at all? He's an ex-South African soldier. He was sort of I saw it on some chat room about 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, I know what happened there. Dr. David, also in this channel, the police one, we've got Dr. Willem Steenkamp, who was the National Intelligence Service.
Yeah.
The fellow at that stage, quite senior, and he told me that the army ran out of shells for the 5.5 inch 25 pounders, I think they call it.
Yeah.
Artillery, they ran out, and then the Secret Service had to get them shells very quickly.
Yeah.
I've never actually heard of the Yanks supplying the equipment, any type of equipment. They promised to do so. They said they will. They made some sort of promises. They were high-level talks.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to some of the spies, not Dr. Steenkamp, who said to me, these guys were totally out of their depths.
Yeah.
They would be on a map of Angola, not realizing how big that place is. And
Yeah.
they would say, this is the good guys, this is the bad guys. And after about 10 minutes, the South Africans realized nothing's going to come of this, like they're going to be the sacrificial lambs here. And that's exactly, of course, what happened. And that's a massive influence because once the South Africans withdrew out of Angola, undefeated, I have to say, the story started coming out that they ran away and they got chopped out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Soweto riot started because people thought they see a weakness here and they can attack.
That's right.
No, yeah, but if anyone listening here would perhaps know something about this, please tell us.
Yeah.
Give us a comment or contact me and we will gladly talk to you. Let's hear it.
That's right. Yeah. No names, no peck drill, as they say. Yeah. So anyway, when I left, I actually did a exchange posting. Now, Colonel Swanepoel's oldest daughter, she had a boyfriend in flying squad in Joburg. So I thought, yeah, okay, let's go to Joburg. So I did a exchange transfer, and then I was in Joburg for a couple of months. Then I thought, shit, I want to go travel the world. So that's when I left the South African police. And then I flew first, had a little bit of a holiday in Malawi. And then I arrived in London and I thought, shit, this is a shithole. You know, I went over to Ireland and said, this is a shithole. And I sort of saw this advertisement for the Hong Kong police. So I thought, yeah, that looks good. So I went for the interview and they quite liked me. You know, as I was talking to you last night, they sort of asked some very pointed questions about the South African police. But the thing was, I felt that I wasn't going to sort of knock South Africa in any way because they would think, that was my attitude, they would think that, He's now left the South African police, and now he's knocking it. So I didn't do that at all. And anyway, so I went out to Hong Kong, August 1973. I did 6 months training in the police training school, they called it. Then I was posted out to, well, I had to do a 3-week operation where we raided gambling dens, and it was called, I was under a superintendent and 2 chief inspectors. We were probationary inspectors that time. So you do 3 years on probation, then you get your 2 pips. Now the exams are really difficult. You'd have a standard one. These were 4 papers you had to pass to get out of the police training school. And every 2 weeks, you have a fortnightly test. If you failed, on the plane back. So I passed all those, had no problems. Then I did my standard 2s. That's to get 2nd pip. And then you have another one. You can only do in your 2nd tour when you're an inspector. It's called standard 3s. These are also 4 papers. You have 10 mini essays. It's none of this multiple choice crap. They want to know how you think. In fact, I've never ever done a multiple choice exam. Never. And so I got up to senior inspector, and then I was in Hong Kong on my 2nd tour, the 3rd tour, and I thought, this is boring because they stuck me in an office. My first tour, I was in emergency unit, police tactical unit. That's training a riot platoon. Then 2nd tour, I was also emergency unit in Kowloon. And then on my 3rd tour, I was control room and then posted to administrative job. Now, one thing I will tell you, South Africa has a much better system of files. You got the investigation files, the docket. You got A, B, and C. Hong Kong, you got to collect all the statements together and then write a covering report when the investigation is finished. Some of the files are this big. And the thing is, if somebody dies when you're in the middle of doing an investigation report, they have no way of understanding. It's much simpler. I've always found the South African system was much simpler, the way they do the docket system. And I had some friends of mine who in the BSAP, they said BSAP also used the docket system. And there were quite a lot of ex-BSAP, a lot of ex-Met were there, Metropolitan Police. It's got this sort of Cockney accent, hello, you're nicked, how they talk. And
Must have been very different. The Hong Kong police.
oh, well, yeah.
And
South Africa, because I was a launch commander, I got my tickets and everything for coastal navigation. The pay was good, conditions of service was good, but it's just so soul destroying. Doing hours. You're doing all this paperwork. And the other thing in the Hong Kong police, as an officer, you booze all the time. There's a lot of drinking. And I think I wouldn't be alive now if I'd stayed. I'd have been dead. Because I used to be an Irish senior superintendent. He'd come down to my office and he said, come on, Felix. And he'd drag me up. This was about just before lunch. He said, the sun is over the yard arm. And I'd leave about 8 o'clock at night, sort of pissed out of my skull. So it's a very sort of drinking sort of thing. The Brits loved their booze. Well, it's not only Brits. You had a couple of South Africans there. There was Danny Robertson, Razzie Rasmus. He was an Afrikaner guy, was in the Hong Kong police. But he sort of felt he had to do his duty in Rhodesia. So he went back to Rhodesia, and his first day out on patrol, he was killed.
That's so sad.
Yeah, so we had a sort of memorial service for him. But at that time, originally, they used to allow the ex-BSAP to wear their medal. And then somebody changed it. But there was a lot of ex-BSAP in Hong Kong, quite a few. And some from other colonial police forces, like the commissioner, one of the commissioners when I was there, he was ex-Malaya, ex-Fiji. Now, there were even ex-Palestine police.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They were some of the senior guys. There was one guy I knew, P.J. O'Byrne, told me a lot about Palestine. He knew all about the Irgun, the the Stern Gang and everything. So I had a long chat with him one night, and he said whenever he used to always wear his ex-Palestine police tie. And he said one time he was going through New York and someone recognized and it took away. He couldn't pay for anything, being in the Palestine police. But he was all pro-Arab, all the time. He wasn't pro the Zionists, as he called them. But and then when Palestine went down, about 500 ex-Palestine police transferred to Malaya. In Malaya, I studied this quite a lot because, you see, there was I don't know if you know about the Mau Mau very much. There was an Ian Henderson. I met quite a few ex-Kenyan police as well. Ian Henderson, he was the guy who tracked down Dedan Kamati. And he was in the Aberdare forest. They couldn't get in and get him, so they had to turn a gang, turn them out. Even in the security police, they had a lot of ex-SWAPO as well. In most of Colonel Swanepoel's black guys were all ex-SWAPO. And even some of the black police had infiltrated Russia, infiltrated China. Yeah. And
what sort of counter type of operation all the time?
Yeah, that's right.
We've got a Brigadier Raymond who will come on the show again. He only recorded for a short one, but he'll come back. And he was in the State Security Council as well as quite high in the security branch. And he was always telling me that most of the information didn't come from national intelligence. It came from let's call them the police boys or the security branch.
That's right. Yeah.
But we will interview those people, we'll definitely. But I need to ask you something quickly, Felix.
Yeah.
Looking back now, how do you feel about these riots which were happening in Hong Kong in the last 2 years?
Right now in Hong Kong, they're stirred up by the National Endowment for Democracy, because these kids rioting in Hong Kong, they weren't there under the British. I can tell you, the British had fairly draconian laws. They had detention without trial, because they could lock you up for a year on a signature of the governor. They also had corporal punishment up until about the end of the end of the 80s. They had corporal punishment. You could get up to 24 strokes of the heavy cane. You could also, they could detain you without trial. Now, the powers of arrests of the Hong Kong police was a lot better than South Africa. Under the police force ordinance, you could arrest anyone you thought was guilty of any crime or liable to deportation from the colony, as they called it then. They later changed that to territory. But when I first went there, it was colony, because it was a crown colony. And there's no such thing as democracy. No such thing. It was all British. Later they changed that. It was this guy, Doug Patton, who took over. He was a politician. Before that, they always had these guys from the Foreign Office who was old China hands. They knew how to get on. And he sort of wanted to democratize everything. He's one of these, democracy is a load of crap as far as I'm concerned. And you can just see that in UK. Look at the moron they've got now, Boris Johnson. Look at the States. Biden. Now, one thing is that there's growing illiteracy in the English-speaking countries. The United States, 21%, you can check this up, just Google it, 21% of the adult population in the United States are illiterate. And 50% of this is adults, I'm not talking about, and 50% of these adults cannot read a book above 8th grade level. I mean, I lived in the States for a couple of years in the mid-'80s. After I left Hong Kong, I thought, let's go see America, you know. And I thought, this is a crock, you know. I went, then I'd been to Thailand quite a lot, so I came here at the end of 1987. I will be sending you more photos, you know, so you can put some of this stuff up. But as far as I'm concerned, some things the South African police were better than Hong Kong. But many ways, I'd say Hong Kong was a good force. And I'm a member of the Royal Hong Kong Police Force Association. So I keep in contact with guys. Every couple of weeks we get a letter, and it's always sad news. Somebody's croaked, you know. All these old guys I knew, you know, quite a few of them. And so one of these days they'll be putting up about me. But I was, you know, and they still actually have expatriates still in the Hong Kong police, and they were done doxing because it was the British government that asked these expatriates to remain. And one thing, before these riots started in Hong Kong was a much freer country than, I think it was the third free, or maybe 7th or 8th freest country in the world, freer than the United States or UK. And this was all stirred up. And the reason why they had the riots is that the school teachers, they were all funded. They pumped in millions of dollars, the Americans, into the Journalist Association. And it's the same in Thailand. You know, we've got anti-government riots. There's an anti-government, you know, against the king and all this sort of stuff. So the National Endowment for Democracy, the same in Myanmar at the time. That guy, Essential Land Destroyer, he's documenting it. Syria, you know, the Russians, they came in, they were invited in to stop all this because the Yanks, they are funding Al-Qaeda. They're funding it. The head
Well,
chop.
that's what my research has taught me, and, you know, our sponsor, the Philippines Insta, the one who was making all this possible. He's saying all these things in his books as well, and if you look at the fact that this National Endowment Fund is most definitely a CIA fraud, and it's causing trouble wherever they go. Ukraine as well.
Yeah, well, the Ukraine, they spent
there was in 2014, the Ukraine took over a coup d'etat. And now I just read yesterday, just yesterday I read that 7 countries in Africa had coup d'etats conducted by the soldiers trained by Africa Command.
Yeah.
And that's why we don't want the US military close to us. We don't want them near us because you can't trust these fellows, I'm safe to say. Things went wrong. You talked about the literacy, and if people want to argue, I'm going to put down the link. If you guys think, I looked at it individually as well. I was so shocked last night when you said that to me. Obviously, just for viewers here, we don't just talk here. Obviously, we speak before.
Well, you can edit this as well. You can edit.
Yeah, and we'll put that link in tweet for you, and you will then understand that these people are incapable of following a book. They can't read 2 or 3 paragraphs because they don't have it. Now, if you look, I found something else which linked into this. There's Professor Chomsky, some very famous liberal guy. I sometimes quote him in some of the books. He wrote the entire paper on how you can disrupt the society. I'm not saying he was doing it, I'm just saying he said how you can do it. And one of the ways you do it is you make them stupid. You dumb them down.
Well, you know,
happened here. The statistics are big. You can't argue with it.
Oh, I know, because it's, you know, they control the media so much, and most of the National Endowment of Democracy, they're Trotskyists. Because have you ever heard of the Venona intercepts?
Yes, of course. Yeah, Canada.
Yeah. Venona Intercepts was an army colonel in 1943. He started intercepting Soviet messages because they thought Russia might go out of the war. Anyway, they identified, you know, that Roosevelt's #1 guy, his advisor, Harry Hopkins, was an NKVD agent. I'll send you the book, The Venona Intercepts. Of course, they're all trying to deny it now.
It's also where most of was considered a German coffee. He came out and he had that list of it. And then people were talking about, oh, you guys just, you're horrible and horrible. Let's just tell you, after the Verona intercept started being broken, after the 1990s, when the Soviet Union opened their archive. And only one name on the coffee list was actually borderline. The rest were all communists. And he might tell me, you talk to me, and they say to me, so what? And he tell you, so what? Because of Harry Hopkins and the rest of these people in Roosevelt White House, China became communist.
Yeah.
And China intervened in the Korean War. Now, I don't want to say that we were right or wrong to attack North Korea. North Korea attacked South Korea first, and then they went all the way back north, and then China got involved. The fact is, tens of thousands of Americans and they call it Western soldiers actually lost their lives. And then came Vietnam. And now today you have the China, which is the superpower. And that is what these agents did. So you can't tell me that it's not important. No, it's extremely important what happened in the Roosevelt.
Oh, I know. That's right. And you see, this is one reason why I sort of, when I got to Thailand, 87, I got offered this job in teaching in the Buddhist University. So that's good for me. I can relax, read books, meet good students. I mean, you've seen some of the pictures of me with my students. So I would say this sort of has completed my life almost, because I love Thailand, and I am disappointed at what's happening, the way America has turned out. Really, I thought when the Soviet Union fell, we would have peace on earth, but they're not. They're the biggest troublemakers.
From there on, it's been completely wrong. But I would like to ask you about that. I know you speak Thai. You say you speak a bit of Chinese.
Cantonese, yeah.
Cantonese, I know you can still use a few choice words in Afrikaans, your mother. That type of word. The Irish side comes out. But for an Irishman, a Buddhist. Tell us about that.
Okay, well, I actually like Buddhism. It's quite a good, you're responsible for everything. They believe in the karma, and they have what they call the Four Noble Truths. Now, the truth is, existence is suffering. Now, a lot of people think that Buddhists don't believe in God. Actually, what the Buddha said was, there is that which is unborn, unoriginated, uncreated, or unformed. Otherwise, there would be no escape from the created, born, originated, or formed. And he says this is totally different. And a lot of the mystics, like even Christian mysticism, it's very similar. Like John of the Cross, or these Russian hesychasts who do this Jesus prayer. And I would say I've developed my knowledge of Buddhism is where I'm sort of no religion, but all religions. And so what the Buddha taught was that there are what he called the Four Noble Truths. Now, the first truth is that everything is unsatisfactory, you're dissatisfied. A lot of people say suffering, right? But it's not that. It doesn't matter how successful you are. You might become sort of the biggest movie star in the world, but there'll be an element of dissatisfaction because it's not permanent. Yeah. And then he says the number two is the cause of it. What is the cause of dissatisfaction? Is that you want things, craving. Now, obviously, you've got to have the basic things of life, but it's this greed, which is the big suffering. People want like you get $1 billion, oh, I'll have another billion, and you're still not satisfied. Do you think Bill Gates is happy? Do you think Bezos is happy, the richest man in the world? Elon Musk? I don't think so. And then you have the cessation of suffering. Now, this is how you can stop it. And the fourth one is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. It's called the Eightfold Path. But in the language of Pali, they just use 4 words. because Pali is the language the Buddha used. It's like Jesus used Aramaic. Just use 4 words. So they use tuk, that's how they say it, tuka, they spell it tuka, nirot, samotai, maga. Maga just means path. And it's understood because the Pali is very close to Sanskrit. It's a language that has many meanings. Tuk, you cannot explain. Like there are some words in Thai you can't explain in English. Like there's some words in Afrikaans you can't explain in English. Look at the expression. I still use this sometimes. Finish and klaar. Do you ever use that?
Yeah,
It's just, you just can't explain it. You know, how would you say that? If you translated it literally, finish and clear. But Clara, everyone understands if you've been in South Africa, right? And Afrikaans is a very rich language, actually. It's so it's the same. All languages are different. I mean, Thai, they have a word, greng jai. That means they use jai means heart. But when you're greng jai, you're reluctant to ask somebody for something, but there's maybe 500 meanings to it. So I'll use that word and everyone will understand who's been in Thailand any length of time. It's the same in Cantonese. They're very earthy, the Cantonese. Very, very earthy. A common expression amongst friends is dule lomo. And if you said that in English to someone, you'd have a fistful of fives. It means go and make love to your mother.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
You see the Cantonese, they're playing cards and they love to gamble. They'll be throwing down a card, like that. And you watch them and they have great expressions. Like they had a nickname for one of the police superintendents. He was my boss. We called him the MFI, the mad fucking Irishman, because he was. But Cantonese, he was in Marine before. They called him Fung Choi Fanbo. That means a piece of canvas going in the wind, going fuck, 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 because that's all he ever said. Fuck, 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 fuck. Yeah. And that's a wonderful nicknames for the officers in the police. So I look upon my life. I mean, Buddhism is like I'm sort of learning from life. Now, there's a very interesting saying from Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He says, God didn't put you on earth to prosper. He put you on earth so you could develop your soul. Because for me, this life is not so important. I mean, it's good for what you learn. And that's to me what life is all about, the experiences you learn and and you're probably the same. You have that attitude, what you've learned from your life. And Rebecca's probably the same. So that's the way I look at life. It's what I've learned. And yes, I did some wrong things. Everyone's done something wrong, but I think I've learned from them. So I would advise, I wouldn't have my life any other way. I mean, sometimes it was quite tough. Training in the police college, the sergeant shouting at you, Sauti excelio donor young.
I'm sure they trying to help. But I need to ask you a question. I'm very interested in this, actually. I'm glad we got you here today. These Buddhist people, are they necessarily peaceful? If they should be attacked, they get attacked, will they fight back?
Generally, they're peaceful, but it's like anything you see, the Buddha, he didn't teach that Buddhism would stay permanent. He's actually made a prophecy that Buddhism will die, fade out. And you can see this with all the religions. Christianity is fading out. It's dying. Islam is dying. It's been perverted. All of them. I mean, look in the Catholic Church with all the priests. Look at the Islam with the head choppers. The only place where Christianity is really resurgent is in Russia.
Yeah.
Orthodox. Now, now Thailand Buddhism is sort of fairly corrupt. I mean, you have good monks, but you also got monks that are just interested in money, mobile phones, things, They've even caught monks making love to women. You're not supposed to do that if you're a monk. But you find this religious corruption everywhere. And this is what the Buddha predicted. There will be a time when there will be no good people. They even predict that in the Hindu religion. And then you have the Christian church. That's all predicted in Revelations.
Yeah,
So,
they definitely say that. But so if the Americans should attack the Buddhist nation, they can expect to have a fight. These people are not going to...
no, America now is totally evil. I mean, you've seen the pictures of depleted uranium babies, right?
Yes, I wrote
No,
about it.
that is a fucking abomination. It really is. And I've actually pointed this out to Americans. They laugh at it. Oh, they're just Arabs, Yeah. And I just...
I've never actually spoke to a terrorist in modern times, not our time, but let's call it the American intervention. I've never actually spoken to any of them who didn't have somebody killed. Either his mother or his father or his sister or his brother or somebody got killed in a bombing. And then he got angry, and so he picked up the rifle. He didn't want to fight in the beginning. He fought. So then he got it, and then he says, let's go. And then it becomes a creation of violence. It's a circle of violence which you cannot break.
Well, the United States is guilty of the same crimes the Nazis were found guilty of at Nuremberg. Now, the indictment at Nuremberg, count one of the indictment was conspiracy to wage aggressive war. Count 2 was waging aggressive war. Count 3 was genocide. And count 4 were crimes against humanity. Now, the United States in Iraq was clear. All 4 counts: conspiracy to wage aggressive war, UK, Australia, US, and the coalition of the willing. They invaded. Yeah, because they were...
I can tell you as an attorney, I know a few things about this. And if there was the same type of justice, every single president would have been home. Would have been executed by now. For nothing, because there is no such thing as a just war. I just want to say, any American listening here, we're not bashing you. This is just simply the truth. This is simple historical fact.
That's right.
And there is no such thing as a just war either. It's banned. In fact, all war is banned under the UN charters and under international law. We're not supposed to make war. You can defend yourself, yes, if you're attacked. But you should never actually be attacked. In the first place. I believe that something went very wrong in the US. Very, very wrong. It's bad.
You know what Justice Jackson, the chief prosecutor, said? Waging aggressive war is the greatest crime because all other crimes, genocide and crimes against humanity, arise from it. And, I actually put this on a message, posted on the message board. I had people laughing at me, mocking me. And some, these are the sort of liberals who talk about humanitarian intervention to bring democracy. I mean, look how many people died for that, I mean, okay, Saddam was a bad guy, but you go to war. And look at, what they're doing now. They think it's a wonderful thing to sort of make the world in their own image democratic, but they're not democratic. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah.
There's so much we can say about that. I mean, it is just insanity what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And it's like they're heading towards their own defeat and doom, and they just don't care. They just, I think holding me. But they laugh it off. They just don't see anything funny. I mean, the sponsor of ours is considering this one to flatly stated that you're going to lose this war. But let's supposed to look at it objectively. Let's look at it from the outside. You don't have a weapon. You don't have a human. There's only about 300 million of yours. There's 1.2 billion Chinese. Then you add the Russians, you add the rest of the world who doesn't like you, including India. And what the hell do you think is going to happen? And yet they just carry on. They believe they're going to arrive with an aircraft carrier.
Well, well, did
and
you
they
see
just
what
want to bomb the hell out of people, and there won't be any combat. Well, let me tell you, there's going to be huge combat.
the thing is? As far as you heard what Putin said last night at the Petersburg, I think it was maybe a couple of days ago. He said the U.S. is marching in the same path as the USSR. They believe, they're straight and firm and straight, but they're making all these little mistakes, and it's unsustainable. I'll send you that link.
Yeah, I'll have a look over here for people as well. No, you know what? You reach a certain age in life, and you look back and you think to yourself. I once had an argument with a fellow police officer. He said to me, "Become a man in the college." And I said to him, "No, you don't. You become a man and you wear that uniform, you walk into a first crime, serious crime now, where you see the dead people, you actually smell the dead people. That's you can't see Hollywood, but you smell the dead. And you see these people and you see, like, I remember, where a child would be raped. And you see the blood and the gore and the child's eyes are this big and he's shocked. And you see these things, that's where you grow up. That's where you actually become a man. And unless you see these things, it's not a damn computer game. I keep on saying to people, it's different. You will not be as brave in a real situation as you think you are right now.
Well, I've seen quite a few dead bodies. In the South African police, I've seen quite a few. And of course, in Hong Kong, in the Marine Police. Now, Hong Kong police was bigger than the South African police, which had an area of 500,000, I think 1.2 million square kilometers, South Africa, and then Southwest is another 800,000. So nearly 2 million square kilometers. You had a force of about 35,000 policing that. Hong Kong area is about 700, 800 square kilometers. You have a force of around 40,000.
Oh, so that's what you meant when you said it was not a democracy under the British. It couldn't be. There must be a policeman in every street corner.
Hong Kong was never a democracy under the British. They had detention without trial. They have all these various ordinances. And the constitution written for Hong Kong, when it became a special administrative region, was actually freer. And all China did was pass a security law. You could crack down on these rat bags because they're pouring millions of dollars into from the Journalists Association. They'd write things up, and I've sort of.
They think they would achieve. I mean, China was never going to give up Hong Kong. China was never going to say, "Look, okay, fine, you're going to become your own country now. It's fine, you can just carry on." That was never going to happen. So why? Why would they do this? Because it seems to me that it's like causing trouble for the sake of trouble. And people will die because of it.
And I found Democratic politicians today are all. I can't think of one that's. Well, look at Biden, Trudeau, Boris Johnson is a wanker. He's an idiot. Yeah.
Well, he's bringing the UK on a path where.
In German, they have a very good word, Bachpfeifengesicht. Bachpfeifengesicht is having a face that needs a punch.
Like that micro last night. It's quite big.
That's a wonderful German word.
Right on the face. That was quite fun.
I'll send it to you on. I'll send the you online. Bachpfeifengesicht. Yeah. I'm fairly happily married here. I'm sort of. Okay, I'm getting old. I've got walk upstairs. Not too bad. It's walking downstairs. Your knees have problems. I got back pain. I've had a heart attack. Had a bit of skin cancer cut out. So it's the old carcass is giving up soon. But see what happens. I've sort of fairly. I can accept it. Yeah.
So alive.
Yeah, that's right. So
the leaders and people there were focused on this young fellow. My wife Rebecca said, "Oh, what a handsome young lad."
And now, look at me now. Look at me now.
But
As
if you
Oscar
have to
Wilde
give
said,
advice, if you could give advice to a youngster perhaps listening here who wants to join the police or the army or
Yeah.
anywhere, I don't know, people can look at this from anywhere. Would you have any words of advice to anybody about life, police, anything?
well, the thing is, being in a disciplined service, the police or army, you learn things. You learn about yourself. And, these long-haired liberals who just hang out, and they look flabby. They have no vigor in their body when they walk. I mean, okay, I sort of walk slowly now because I got aching knees. I broke my foot last year, so I'm still limping a bit from that. But but when I look at some of the young people today, their reflexes. One interesting thing, when I'd been in the police college for about 4 months, I went out to visit my old friends in the YMCA Pretoria. It's 650 Church Street, I think. Yeah, Kerkstraat. And looking at some of the people said, wow, Felix, your reflexes are really fast. All that PT, foot drill, musketry, marching, and it really was. And I really am grateful for that year of being made fit in the police college. And I think your colonel, I listened to him, I think he said the same thing, getting fit, police college. And you probably say the same thing. Yeah.
No, there is something which you can see. Well, I look around here in Switzerland where I find myself now, and I look at the police and they are superbly equipped.
Yeah.
They stop. They better go through nothing happens here which involves the shooting or a knifing or let's say a terrorist attack, because the way the Swiss pistol people, I really foresee a terrorist attack in this country. I try to warn them. Of course, I don't want to listen, so I don't care. I'll just walk away. But they can't deal with it. They don't have that edge. They just don't have it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There's no toughness. They think they are, yes, but perhaps they can run 2.4 kilos in quite a bit. But what people don't understand is they will say to me, yeah, but we're very good shots. I say, if somebody starts shooting at you, how good a shot are you going to be? Do you even know what's a double tap in shooting method? Do you understand that when you approach a house, you do it in a certain way? Do you know how to deal with a terrorist attack? No, they have no clue. They don't even understand it. They think if I may say it, they Swiss they cannot be attacked because they're some kind of protected society. Well, I have news for you, mate. I really have news for you. And that's perhaps what we saw in the colony. Because the violence was so extensive at a young age. I think we think differently from the guys who were not, because many people would tell what we've gone through as a war situation.
That's right.
We would say, no, the war was actually in Lombolong and more. It wasn't there. But I must say, later in my time, the war came on. And the bomb started exploding, and we would be called out as the police to see my book. You didn't know what you were going to fight. And so we would walk into the terrorists and the shootouts would occur. But I want to say something. We never committed murder.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to add.
There was a huge investigation.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add, I didn't get down to. Now we were talking about Palestinian police going to Malaya during the 40 to 1960. Do you know that 70% of the CTs, communist terrorists, were killed by the police? And there's about 600 or 700 army casualties, but 1,600 Malayan police were killed during that emergency. And it was 48 to 1960. They shut everything down. I mean, they're talking about the Chinese putting the Uyghurs into concentration camps. The Brits did the same in Malaya. They did the
Yes,
same in Kenya with the Mau Mau.
The apartheid comes directly from the English.
Yeah.
From the
The
English.
same, the Mau Mau. And
Yeah,
the
Mamo was
Boer
in
War, who invented the concentration camp? The Brits. Yeah.
absolutely no. You know, it's interesting because Herman Göring, you know, the German Luftwaffe, the German foreign minister, whatever he was, his father was actually the governor in Namibia, in German West Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knew about the British concentration camp during the South African War, the Second Anglo-Boer War, where they killed 1 out of every 3 women and child they could get off.
Yeah, well,
You know that the first 2 laws which have been brought into action after the Afrikaners had to surrender, the first 2 laws they brought was the Group Areas Act to say that blacks have to live there and white people have to live there. In other words, apartheid, people who live there.
Yeah.
And the second thing they brought in at the same time was the ban on mixed marriages.
Yeah, that was under Herzog, I think, in the 1930s, I think. Yeah, Herzog. Yeah.
So he came in on the left. It wasn't the native Afrikaner thing, actually. But you know what? Once you call this Tom, it's like your father. Once you fought in the Nazi army, even if you saved some Jews, you will always be branded as something like people who just don't know. They don't know anything. They don't know history.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you know, I mean, one of the things I found talking to a lot of when I was in the South African police was, I hate to use the word liberal, but how people thought they do. You know, it wasn't this sort of hard guy all the time, tough guy. A lot of people were sort of very deep thinking about how you solve things. Now, I'll give you an example. Dr. Bluchnow, the district surgeon in Katima Mulilo, he ostensibly was the Oderlinger in the church, of the much deformed church, as they called, the Sotis called it. And but I actually saw him. He grew up on a mission station in old Nyasaland. But I've actually seen him sort of tending injured or sick Africans, and he'd sort of have a tear here out of compassion. Yeah. And this is the thing. And you look at some of the greatest opponents of whites in apartheid. You had Brayton Breitenbach, poet, Bram Fischer, who's a communist. Yeah. Bayers Nordia. Yeah. And so it's quite amazing. It's looking back, it's so difficult to judge who was right, who was wrong. It's just experience of life. Yeah.
Well, I think the Italians brought out some kind of a movie in the 1960s. I'm trying to think of it. Yeah. So I will get the link and put it here. We showed that after independence.
Yeah. By the way, have you seen that film Africa Adio?
That's what I'm talking about. Thank you for that. Yes. And I can tell every one of you can look at that thing, look at it during that time. Because you can see some home truths which you have not seen in your life. And then you will see the brutality of Africa. And you will understand why South Africa decided we cannot follow the truth. We cannot follow it.
I recommended to an American friend of mine to watch it. He says, "Oh, it's too sensationalist. You couldn't watch it." But it's film. The camera does not die. Look at Zanzibar.
Oh, yeah.
Driving the Arabs into the sea. Yeah. Anyway, I've got to sort of get up fairly early. I'm sort of teaching online. Anything else to ask me? Yeah.
Yes, what we'll do is we will ask people if they have any questions for you. They can come back, leave it here below, and we will get you online again. Felix, thank you very much.
Okay.
Really appreciate this talk. It was great.
Okay, I'll be sending you some photos over the next couple of days as soon as I look in my files. Okay. Tot ziens. Goeienacht. Lekker droom. Okay. Take care, mate. Okay. Bye-bye.
It's always an honor to speak to an old man. if I may say that word. He was, after all, in the police when I was 1 year old. And yet, it's interesting to me that we still speak the same language. I think the traditions of the old police is important. It's the one thing which I see with all the policemen. It doesn't matter where they are in the world or what happened to them afterwards. They do share the same basic principles and basic outlook on life. And I think that's called tradition, and it's a very good thing. Thank you for listening here. Like the video, spread the word around, download it if you wish. And as I always say, there's a former policeman listening here. You know, you're welcome to contact me. Let's get your story out there. I think it's time to have frank discussions.